I've been getting a lot of questions about the gear I'm using in these videos, so I'm going to break down all of the guitar equipment I use for my basic jazz tone. I'm going to get into the video equipment I use to film these, video and audio equipment. And then lastly, I'll get into all of the pedals I use, not really for any jazz gig, but just for any other guitar gig that might require them. If it's a funk, pop, blues gig, what pedals I use. So guitar gear, video, audio gear, and then my pedal gear. And this will be my 2022 gear video, although it hasn't really changed since I've been playing guitar. So I'm not a real big gear guy, so I'll show you guys what I use and what I've stuck with for a long time. So starting off, my guitar is an Ibanez Artcore model AG85. I got this when I first started playing, basically 15, 16 years ago, and I haven't really had the need to get another guitar, although I did get a Telecaster. For a cruise ship I needed a backup guitar and something that had more of a Telecaster tone. This one's great. I loved that it had the matching finish here, where the pick guard also has the same finish as the main body, and the inlay's great. You know, you determine whether it sounds good to you. I like the tone, and I can use it on basically any gig I have, from jazz guitar gigs to, like I said, the pop, funk, blues gigs I also get. I even snuck it on some wedding gigs when they've asked for a classical guitar, because I don't actually own a nylon string. So that's the guitar. None of this is sponsored, by the way. Ibanez, if you'd like to sponsor me, my email is contact@jazzmemes.org. Feel free to send me a message. As far as picks, I use Fender Heavies, which I have right here. So a Fender Heavy pick. I used to use Jazz 3s, but then I started to find them a little bit too harsh and pointy. So I use the Fender Heavies on the rounded edge, so not on the sort of standard pick side, but I turn them and use the rounded edge. So that's on the pick side. On cables, I use Mogami, and honestly, they're the best cables I've ever used. Better than Monster cables or any of these cables. My general philosophy on buying gear is you want to buy the best and then stick with it. That in the long run will save you more money than just buying kind of the cheap product, whether it's cables or pedals. So I always spring for the Mogami cables, and literally some of my main cables I've had since I've started playing guitar for like 15 years. So Mogami cables are excellent. Shout out to Mogami. As far as the amp I use a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe amp, tube amp. I have two of them actually, because one of them had some freaky issues on a gig one time, and I still love the amp even with those issues. I had to find a good guitar tech to fix it up right. It does take some maintenance, especially down here in South Florida, where the humidity really makes your tubes die and electronics die a little bit quicker. So you need to get some regular maintenance, some regular resoldering. But for me, it's worth it for the tone and the ability to use it on any gig style. Same reason like with this guitar. So I use that same amp and this same guitar for 95% of my gigs. And that way I always know what I'm working with. So again, you want to find a good guitar tech in your area. I use this guy, Albert Fortes, 6-String Theory. So if you're in South Florida, you got to check Albert out. He will hook you up. Like I said, I bought two of them. So I use one as a practice amp. That's the one down there. And then I have another one that's my gig amp that I use just for gigs. That's pretty much it on the guitar side. It's just guitar with Mogami cables plugged into my amp. That's what you guys are hearing on basically all of these videos, with the exception of the ones that I have a looper on, where I set up chords ahead of time. Then you're hearing it go through my pedal board. But even for those, I'm not using any other pedals except the looper. So that's the standard tone. Let's get into the video equipment. All right, so checking out the video equipment, let's start off with the lighting. So up here I have the Godox SL60W, and that's the main light I use. I do have my lamp in the background as sort of a kicker hair light, and sometimes you'll see me put that candle on as well, just to give some separation. But pretty much that light with a softbox on a cheap, newer light stand. I think I got all this off of Amazon pretty easily. On the audio side, I use a Rode Video Mic Go. Also on another stand. You'll have to figure out what stands work for you, but these are basically cheap light stands. And so I have that hooked into the Ninja 5. Now, this is a little bit of overkill for YouTube, but I find it helpful just to make sure I get my exposure right. and then also turn the monitor around so I can see myself, make sure the focus is good, make sure everything's set that way. And also because I'm filming other things for the Jazz Memes channel, it allows me to have longer record times. So when I'm recording concerts, I can record on that. And then lastly, it's my Nikon Z6, and that's what is hooked up to the Ninja 5 recorder. And I'm just using the kit lens that comes with it, which is a 24-70 f4 set around 28 millimeters. So that is it for the video gear. I edit everything in Final Cut afterward. Okay, so now that we've checked out the video equipment, we'll take a look at all of the pedal gear that I use. If you guys have any questions about this gear, with the guitar, video, or pedal equipment, let me know in the comments. I'm also looking for a new looper, so if you guys have any recommendations for a loop pedal or other pedals that you guys are digging, let me know in the comments as well. So I'm going to switch this camera over. We're going to look down at my pedal boards, and I'll play through some examples so you guys can hear what these different pedals do. So now I have you guys in my pedal view, and let's go down the line. So the way I first started building this is just making sure I had one of each of the main special effects that I might need for any sort of gig. So from my research, what I basically determined was I would need a volume pedal. So this is the Ernie Ball VP Junior. That's a great volume pedal. This is the wah pedal I use, which is a full tone Clyde Deluxe. I'll get into some detail about each of these pedals in a second. Then I have for my drive distortion type sound a Full Drive 2, also from Full Tone. This is the MOSFET Full Drive 2. Then I have for my looper over here, this yellow one is the looper, and this is the Nux Loop Core. Like I said, not thrilled with it, but it works for what I need. On the left here is a Jackrabbit by Sir, and it's just a pretty standard tremolo. Works for the kind of basic tremolo stuff I might use it for. I have my Korg tuner, and I have a Analog Man chorus, and I have an Analog Man dual delay. So that pretty much covers me for any gig. I've never had a need for any other effects. I'm not doing any sort of 80s gigs or really hard rock type gigs where I might need some more specific pedals. But for just general effects, this works for everything. It's also the standard effects you might need for like a musical or theater gig. This will cover you for all of that as well. You don't need the loop pedal if you're not doing any gigs that require it. So a couple things with these. They're all pretty much the best in class of their respective sound, maybe with the exception of this loop chord Nux loop. And then a lot of people have preferences. The Full Tone wah is probably the only one on here I regret getting. I've had a couple issues with it. The sound's great and it covers a wide range of wah, but if you see on the side here, it's missing a knob. And also on this side right here, where the power unit goes in, where the plug goes in, that's broken off multiple times. Even after I sent it into them, it's broken off. It's just really cheap plastic, and I had to get, again, my Guitar Tech Albert to put in a proper plug there. So that's disappointing on Full Tone wah because it wasn't a cheap one. I think it was around $300. Full Drive is great because it also has a boost here. So let's just go through these a little bit. So obviously you got my tuner. I need to tune up a little bit. See the wah. It's also a little bit noisy on this wah. That's the wah. On the drive. My tremolo's not plugged in, but that's a pretty basic tremolo. The chorus gets a really nice chorus sound. And then lastly, the delay. What's cool about this is you have 2 delays, so you can set them to different settings. So that's a pretty quick decay. So I'm sure that's probably one of the worst gear videos you guys have seen, but I do not really do gear videos and do not really get into gear that much. So just wanted to show you guys what I have. Maybe in the future, if anyone has any gear questions, I can do more of those, but it's not really my thing. I prefer teaching guitar concepts and things related to that. So you won't want to come to this channel for any gear videos. I figured I would just do a little explanation of what I use since I get a lot of questions on it. So hopefully you found that helpful if you are looking into this gear or had any questions on what gear you might get to achieve this sound. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you in the next video.